All right, what is going on, Chiefs Kingdom? Welcome back to another live edition of The Kingdom Says. I am your host, as always, Garrett Williams. Tonight, I am joined by two men on the screen, hopefully a third very soon. We'll have Mr. Arrowhead Tom join us momentarily. We've got Kyle Henning at the top right of the screen. How are we doing tonight, Kyle?
Doing well, doing well. It's still taking way too long to get to the game that we've been talking about now for 2 weeks, but we are now at the actual point where we're only about 60 something hours away, as opposed to what I said on Wednesday, which
Less
was
than
60
48,
something
I think,
hours
right?
away.
I mean, less than
So,
48.
you know,
Yeah,
uh,
that's math
it's
for us,
about go time. I've heard about 10,000 takes, and we're gonna have some more for everybody tonight. So, ready to go, ready to get started, and happy to have our guest with us.
Yeah, join us tonight, as you can all see on the bottom of the screen, who can know his rights and his lefts, even when the camera is distorted. That was pretty impressive. That's a veteran podcasting move right there. KCSN's very own, the fans' very own Joshua Brisco. How we doing tonight, Josh?
1,000 takes? Get out of here. 1,001, 1,002. This is the time. I understand that feeling of the slow, long ramp up. So much of this season felt like a slow, long ramp up. If you don't have it in you tonight, fellas, if this isn't the time that you're ready for it, then go back to bed and wake up at about 4:45 on Sunday. This is the time for us to spend 15 solid minutes earnestly discussing Shamari Connor. It's the Friday before the Super Bowl.
Let's go. Yeah, this has become a very awesome annual tradition that us as Chiefs fans have been able to experience the past few years. Yeah, Josh, happy to have you on. As always, it's always a great time having you on, talking some Chiefs, and you're obviously a bundle of electricity down there. And so it's going to be a good night. It's going to be a real good night. We're going to be going full send as far as Super Bowl talk, breakdowns, all that stuff. This is it. This is the episode. The last time we'll be on that microphone before the big game, which is a really fun time. So I'm excited. Kyle, I know you're excited. I can tell Josh is excited. Everyone who's watching right now already tuning in, I know they're excited. So we're gonna have just a heck of a little night here together with everyone. Kyle, initial thoughts on being 48 hours away from potentially being the first team in NFL history to three-peat. What do you think? How's the nerves feeling?
Nerves are fine, honestly. This is the game we've been waiting for all year, and I don't mean just us, the fan base. Like, this feels like what the team has been waiting for all year. The way that they've kind of gone about this season, the way we've gone through all of the steps in the stages. I know Nick Wright has made it a famous thing to say they were practicing all the way through the Houston game, even in the playoffs. The first game that they were playing was the Bills in the AFC title game, and it sounds ridiculous, but also when you go back and you really look through all this stuff, you're like, I mean, yeah, kinda. Um, I remember earlier this year we had conversations on whether or not they were holding things back or not, which they clearly were. Ask the Buffalo Bills. So it's the build up, like Josh mentioned. The build up has been building all year. We feel like we've just kind of been, okay, they're 4-0. Okay, they're 7-0. Okay, they're
Still undefeated
9-1
somehow.
or
Yeah.
whatever. Now they're 15-1, and now that game on after the Christmas game doesn't really matter, so the season's over. Oh wait, they played a bunch of like me and you against the Broncos, and then
Yeah.
oh, it's Houston. Well, we can play like a B-ish game, not roll anything new out, and still win, and we did. Oh, the Bills? Here, let's try. And so now we're to the point where this is it. This is the game that they've wanted all year. Mahomes has been talking about this game since they won the last one, and he didn't even wait 30 seconds from the time they won the last one to start talking about this one. And after they talked about it in the offseason, they didn't say anything about it again publicly. They've also been ranting about how they don't talk about it in the locker room, which, okay, great. You did on the stage last year when you were getting the trophy. So we know it's in the mindset, it's in the mentality.
They know.
And there's a lot of these guys that they've added for this specific run that they very much want to get a ring for. Travis has talked about it. Patrick and them talked about it. For Kareem, for D-Hop, for all the guys that don't have one, that have never had one, that deserve one in their minds. Charles Omenihu, I think Josh put it really well, like a kindergartner on the sideline of the AFC Championship game, just giddy that he's going to be able to actually play in this year's Super Bowl.
Yeah.
Hey, man, this is what we wanted, what you've asked for all year. And it's also kind of interesting that it's the us against the world mentality, especially because the team on the other side isn't exactly loved by a lot of folks due to personality types of their, I don't know, coach, fan base, some of the players, you know.
Mm-hmm.
So it's one of those where, yeah, this is it. This is the whole season in one shot. This is everything we've wanted. Now what happens?
Yeah, Josh, are there any nerves for you yet going into it 48 hours away? Are there any kind of thoughts, negative feelings?
Yeah, I don't think it was nerves. And at this point, I kind of have a weird relationship with like big games, and this is several layers deep. But like, you know, for all of these previous Super Bowls, like I had to host a post game show. I mean, like not like no one had a gun to me. Like I got to host a post game show. Like that's where my head was largely at in terms of like enjoy the setup, but then that would really kind of whip back and forth between watching and understanding the game and then, you know, being ready to go afterwards and everything.
Mm-hmm.
On Thursday for me, as we were getting ready for yesterday's Only Weird Games, that for me was when it did start to come together. And I'll shout out some really good work that Tyler Dunn has done this week over at Go Long. I was on his podcast last night, and he also had an Xavier Worthy piece come out today that he didn't even mention to me. I didn't even know that was happening. But talking to him kind of about all of the specific matchups and going through it with Seth and Nate and kind of getting the very end of their week of Radio Row, getting to put all of the history in context, it did sort of settle for me yesterday in a way that it had not yet entirely. So yeah, it feels like, I mean, again, this is something that we've never had to say this like directly before, but yeah, it does feel like it's Super Bowl time. And that is a weird thing to have to reemphasize because none of us ever thought the Chiefs would be in a position where you could even have the question of like, are you taking this for granted? I don't think I am. I don't think most of us are. But it fully feels like there's a lot at stake now. It's not just the championship. It is realistically, like if the Chiefs are going to do the three-peat thing, if they're going to make history in that way, this is the time. Because if you lose on Sunday, now you are 3 Super Bowls away from making it happen, as opposed to being 60 minutes away, 1 win, which is where those stakes stand now. So it's really, really exciting.
Yeah, the nerves, I mean, it's definitely a level of comfortability that we have as Chiefs fans, obviously having our 3rd straight Super Bowl week. And, you know, it's been a weird one, honestly. It's kind of been, it almost doesn't even feel like Super Bowl week up until, you know, like yesterday, I think was really, like you said, kind of when it really set in. But it's just been a really interesting week, something that we're very familiar with, seeing it's interesting because like you have all like the player interviews and on media night and stuff, and really haven't even paid a whole lot of attention to that because at a certain point it's like some of those guys they've already been asked all of the questions that you could possibly get asked on Media Row. You know, it's good. A couple of the new guys are getting in there and you get some really insightful answers like from D-Hop and Peyton Hendershot and a couple other guys that have been very interesting listens to. So it's a really fun week, and it's definitely sat in now that's like, okay, this is something big that we're not going to probably ever get another chance at this. Not many people are going to get another chance at this period. And we can make something happen that, will cement our legacy forever as the greatest team in history. And Patrick Mahomes will probably cement his legacy as the greatest of all time. It's very weird. It's very weird how, like you said, 60 minutes away from just a complete change of how we kind of view this dynasty and this Chiefs team as a whole.
Well, to highlight kind of your point about that we may not see another team get this opportunity. Nobody's ever had this opportunity before. Yeah, nobody ever got back to this point even. They've already gone farther than anybody else trying to three-peat has ever gotten, because the last 3 that made it even this far did not make it this far. They lost in the AFC Championship or AFC or NFC Championship game, whichever one of those
The championship game
where they
yeah.
were in. So, the only team that's been to 4 consecutive Super Bowls lost all 4 of them, and we beat them last weekend, or 2 weekends ago. So
that'd be a terrible feeling. Imagine going into the 4th one. All right, guys.
That's what I
this is
used to
definitely
assume
our
that
year.
like the Chiefs' best would be. Like I remember being a young boy and hearing these stories of the Bills. Boy, I love losing Super Bowls and thinking like, oh well, maybe someday I'll have the privilege of watching the Chiefs lose in a Super Bowl. I wasn't going to bet on it though.
Yeah, unfortunately, we have seen them lose one Super Bowl, which is tragic. Yeah, but
I'm really glad that wasn't the first one. That would have had some more emotional damage, I think.
Oh, yeah,
well, that would have required some more curse breaking on Patrick's behalf then also, because there's not been a quarterback who made it to the Super Bowl and then made it back and won. Every time that they've made multiples after losing the first one, they did not win any of the ones that came after it.
That is wild. Yeah, that's a wild stat.
It's rough for those folks. That's part of the lore that Jalen Hurts is trying to battle, because he lost to Patrick Mahomes 2 Super Bowls ago. So, the history, it changes everything for them, and they all know it. And that, especially the big group, the core group that knows what this is all about for the legacy entailing. It's kind of the reason I don't think I've had as many nerves. I've kind of taken the vibes that I've gotten from them, which is this is the most relaxed they've looked in a lead up to a Super Bowl. Like, I don't know if I'm the only one, but like watching media night and watching several of the days since then, they were messing with each other about Settlers of Catan today on socials. Like, they
worth the watch if you haven't seen it. I have only consumed a fraction of the glacier of Super Bowl week content that has come from all of that. That's worth your time.
Yeah, it was very funny, and it's like they don't remotely seem stressed about this, and I guess it's that sense of comfortability, because we've talked about how many of them don't know literally anything else but being in Super Bowl.
This is how George Karlaftis's professional seasons go every year.
Yeah,
Trent McDuffie does this every year. Like, you could take that entire draft class, and then even like,
and then the next year's draft class too.
Well, that's the thing. It's that draft class. It's the next year's draft class. It's also veterans who have been here for a while, like Justin Reed, who certainly has like the understanding that not every season ends this way. But when he's a Chief, this is what you're expecting. You are expecting to be there playing in February, and then when you get there, again, like I don't ever want to take this for granted, and I want to make sure that it's clear that I am saying this in full awareness of how bonkers it is. There's not a lot of logistics to solve for this team going to the Super Bowl anymore. Andy Reid is a creature of habit. He loves his schedule. Obviously, this year they played every day but Tuesday, and they won they won on every one of those days, right? Because Buffalo is a Sunday, and then
Sunday, so everyone.
The Broncos game was actually also on Sunday, right? Yeah.
Saturday, or was it Saturday or Sunday?
I can't remember.
Either way, we won Saturday versus Texans.
They beat the Texans on Saturday already, so
we forgot Carson. We forgot what day Carson Wentz started on.
Exactly.
Oh no.
Yeah.
But when again, Andy Reid would prefer to play every game at noon on Sunday or 3:25 on Sunday. Pick the same time and just live your life on the schedule. But he's also said he'll fight you in the CVS parking lot. And so, to this point, there are not a whole lot of logistical questions for anybody other than DeAndre Hopkins and Hollywood Brown, who are like buying tickets for their family to get there to see them play in their first Super Bowl. Organizationally, the equipment staff has done this 3 years in a row. Like, it is literally a habit at this point. So the Chiefs should be. I said this. I don't remember if this was on Weird Games or with Tyler or whatever. But it kind of feels like the Chiefs are playing a home game. I mean, it's obviously in New Orleans, and the crowd will be split. I'm not saying it's going to be 90% Chiefs fans. But in terms, even though the Chiefs have been quietly, to no complaint, have been practicing at the collegiate field as opposed to how things went last year, and that was a very big deal for one of the teams. But the Chiefs are the I mean, they are the road team as well, right? Yeah, they're in the whites and all of that.
Yeah. So which I hate that. Why did it be the same matchup again?
Yeah, that's a fair point. I would have preferred
Exactly,
I
just
mean,
for like pictures. 'Cause
anyone
then you
other
can
than
see
the
it.
Eagles, anyone other than the Eagles or Niners would have been kind of fun just to like switch that
Exactly.
up a
Yes,
little bit.
last year is the same deal. Yeah, it's like now
Whatever.
if you ever see a picture, you don't know which one it's from. Yeah.
Yeah. So no, that's a good point. I do like the whites and red pants though. I think that's
I
a
mean,
very
it's a
clean
clean
look.
look. Yeah.
I'm glad they're doing that.
Maybe if the Eagles would
Uh,
have wore Kelly Green. Yeah. Maybe.
oh yeah,
That would have
yeah.
been sick.
They
Yeah.
is it too late? We've got time, right?
Yeah.
You know what? It
Nike,
wouldn't be too late for the Chiefs equipment staff because they do this every year.
they do it every year. Yeah.
You said 3 straight. They've also done it 5 of the last 6.
I have the last
Yep.
yeah.
Like
It's just wild. Yeah.
Andy-
This organization from the top to bottom it knows this. They know how to do this now.
Andy led with like to start the press conferences to kick all this stuff off with, yeah, we're doing our normal Super Bowl routine.
Right.
Yep.
Say what?
Normal week, guys.
And you mentioned earlier a little bit like, you know, that obviously they were talking about three-peating. I think Jim Nantz said on stage at the AFC Championship game
Yeah.
that Kelsey had mentioned it to him and the CBS staff before last year's Super Bowl. So that's obviously like they are very aware of the history on their shoulders and what's in front of them and all of that. But I also really believe Andy when he said, who knows what day, it doesn't matter. Everyone's talking every day. But at some point in the last 2 weeks, Andy Reid kind of talked about like the entire project of perspective throughout a game like this and the history that it entails. And I'll have to find just like the transcript because he went through some of the details. Like, look, if you're thinking about three-peating, if you're thinking about history, you probably aren't thinking about 4th and 1. And so I do think that all these guys have the larger picture in mind. They know what's out there. But I also think, and no one in the sport has more authority to say this than Andy Reid and Patrick Mahomes, and Chris Jones, and Travis Kelce. But I think everyone in that organization also understands the only way we're getting big picture thing, if it's Super Bowl, three-peat, whatever, is by winning this game. And the only way we're winning this game is by winning this drive. And the only way we're winning this drive is by winning this play. Like a lot of that, you can probably hear how conflicted I am because a lot of times that stuff I think can be lazy analysis. I think it can be a stand-in for what's really happening there. Well, who wanted it more? Who had more focus? Listen, I can be really focused, and Chris Jones would still not have any trouble trampling me to my death to get to the quarterback I'm trying to protect, no matter how focused I am. But what's happening with this team from training camp until the second weekend of February is an attention to detail and an attention to the specific thing you're preparing for that allows you to be in this position months and months and months later. So I don't think any of that is a coincidence. I think you have to be able to compartmentalize some of those things, which also includes being able to play Catan with your teammates on the evenings leading up to the game, because at some point you probably shouldn't watch Saquon Barkley's reverse hurdle for the 5,000th time. You probably figured out what you can get from it.
Well, yeah, like there's definitely some like aspect of over preparing. You know, it's like this is you got to treat it as a pretty normal matchup. Maybe even like a bye week. You know, coming off a bye week type matchup, which as we know,
like they did for Houston. You know, I mean, like a playoff game with an extra week to prepare. They've even done that already this year.
They've already, exactly. They've had so many things that they've already had that have led them to this and preparation and just the whole plan, the whole grand plan. It's interesting how they, obviously the big plan for the season, but you break it down into individual games and you get the guys to buy in and stay focused on each individual game. That's part of the culture that we talked about it on our last episode. Like, it's just, you don't see that around other organizations, the Chiefs and that starts at the top with Clark Hunt and the ownership, and it goes down to Brett Veach and Andy Reid. Like, it's something that you don't see around the NFL, because it has to have, you have to have a lot of people who would get along with each other and who are bought into the same vision and have on the same page. It's a really hard thing to accomplish. And the fact that it's almost just seems so easy for the Chiefs at this point. Like, it's just so trivial of them to just, we're just in another Super Bowl, we'll just keep on going through our normal paces of the week. Like, that's where you have to be. But also it's just wild to think about big picture, zoom out. Like, man, they are just so used to this environment. They're so comfortable. I don't know how you can pick against them, but we'll get into that.
The highlight of that is, here's the pool report from today, courtesy of our friend Mr. Harold Kuntz. 70-minute practice focused on situational football. That's the top tagline. The last practice.
Is that the only thing he was allowed to say? I haven't seen this yet. I hope Harold still has all of his fingers after you're finished reading this.
It says Pure Chiefs pool report, so I'm guessing this is what he pulled from the pool report. 70-minute practice focused on situational football. Andy Reid said on Patrick Mahomes, he comes out with a purpose every day, and he knows he's playing against a real good team. Perfect practice attendance. Those three things.
Yep.
The last day before the Super Bowl, and the taglines are 70-minute practice focused almost entirely on what Josh was talking about, the little things, the this play, the that play, the 4th and 1, the punt coverage, the little details that this team doesn't screw up, that we've watched organizations, and this organization before Andy got here, botch over and over and over again in the little margins. A lot of the NFL is won in the margins. Everybody, for the most part, does the big things fairly decently, especially at this point in the year. You're at the best, you're around the best. The teams that do the little things with the little details, the teams with the better coaching, and usually the teams with the better quarterbacks win these games. Those margins shrink in the playoffs. So when they're focused like that, and Andy says Patrick has come out with a purpose every day and he knows who he's playing against, it's not tongue in cheek. He's not. I know Andy gets a lot of crap about his stereotypical answers, shall we say, his coach speak. He is the guy of coach speak. He's
king of it. Yeah.
It's not as, it doesn't come off as abrasively as the guy he's chasing for several records that he will help with another win on Sunday.
Yeah.
But it's the same stuff with a different recipe around it, and it works for them, and it seems to have built a culture, and that culture is sustainable. That's something that we didn't have in Kansas City for a long time. Jason Dunn talked about it with us on Wednesday. You know, we tried the Patriot way. That didn't work in Kansas City, shockingly enough. Crazy how that works. That didn't work anywhere outside of New England and one guy. Andy's type has transferred over even when coaches have left. Think about all the coaches he's got around the league right now, for one, that have Super Bowls, that have won, that have shown they build cultures. Now, they haven't sustained it necessarily as long because they probably don't get as much leash or as much credit as Andy gets in a lot of areas. But even Andy had to move on from one place to redo it again in another. So this stuff is totally different, and it's a totally separate thing. But the way that this group understands, especially the guys at the top, because that bleeds down to the rest of your locker room. Those are your tone setters. Andy lets his players a lot of the time set the boundaries, the culture, how things go, and this is what they do. And this is what they don't just talk about it; they do it. So it's great to see, and I think Sunday will just be another highlight of exactly those things. If you're going to beat Kansas City, you're going to have to beat them. They're not going to beat themselves.
Yeah, that's very valid. That's very valid. Okay, let's get into the matchup, the big game here. Joining us now, perfect timing, actually. Tom couldn't have made a better time. Mr. Arrowhead Tom is here. How are we doing tonight, Tom?
Excellent. Sorry for being late. I unfortunately have no powers to control traffic. No matter how much I yell at the cars in front of me, they for some reason do not move faster. So
they didn't move out your way, huh? Dang.
I just think it's incredible that you got past all the security to do this show from the Chiefs locker room. You are going to be aggressively tased at some point very soon. I'm glad you're on camera for it.
Turns out, actually, they're all down in New Orleans. No one's here. Like, it's pretty chill.
No one is at the facility.
Yeah, no, it's actually way easier than you thought.
Yep.
I bribed the guy at the gate with some Dave's hot chicken, and we were good.
You know what? I mean, this would be the exact time to plan that particular heist. I'm going to barrel the camera. I personally am not endorsing that.
Of course.
But this would be the time to do it, I guess.
I mean, I'm not a lawyer, so
I'm not a lawyer. Famous last.
Yeah, we don't have one of those on this podcast. We don't have the law team present.
Yeah, I have seen every episode of Suits though, and I feel like we could talk our way out of it.
Okay.
Did you also stay at a Holiday Inn Express last night?
Yeah. Hey, listen, breaking into the Chiefs locker room is actually not that high. I don't even think that makes the top 5 list of like criminal activities committed by a Chiefs super fan. So
true, extremely true.
Yeah.
You are not on the Mount Rushmore.
In the top 5.
No.
Yeah, you're right. You're still safe. Yeah, you're safe
Absolutely
from that conversation. Yeah. Tom, pleasure of you for joining us tonight. We haven't had you on in a week or so, Tom. What are your thoughts so far about Super Bowl week and this whole familiarity that the Chiefs have had, and once again going to the third straight Super Bowl?
Yeah, I mean, it helps having that experience. It helps, being there. One of the things, and we've talked about this a couple times through the seasons, like a lot of teams go through like the Super Bowl hangover, right? And somehow this team has stayed as locked in, even with some of the challenges and the narratives and like even, the nail biting wins, all that stuff. They have just been locked in. And it's, I think, again, historically, once the other narratives that are kind of more reactionary die down, we're going to look at this team. And I know we're all here hoping and believing that they will pull it off. We're going to look at this team as a team that called their shot a year ago after the last Super Bowl and stayed locked in. And that's impressive. That is, again, I don't want to count my chickens before they hatch, but I'm again excited for the historical possibility here. And yeah, the familiarity, I mean, being there twice, even the young guys on the team being there as much as they've been is huge. So I think it's a big advantage. I know that this Eagles team is loaded. They've been very successful. We've seen them in the Super Bowl. So it's like is it a huge, is it probably an underrated advantage just because I think top down the Chiefs have so much collective experience in getting ready for this big game and playing, when the lights are brightest. And we talk a lot about Patrick Mahomes, but that attitude really permeates, I think, throughout the roster. We see Trent McDuffie have big games in the playoff. We see George Karlaftis has come alive. That man, like just he was studying some Frank Clark playoff football.
Has anyone taken Frank Clark Loftus yet? Can that be something that we make happen? That just dawned on me.
Ooh, okay, all right. That's we got to put that on a t-shirt fast.
Hey, you know what sharks and water polo players have in common? Hello, I think this is here.
Dorsal
okay, sorry,
fins?
Tom.
Yeah,
Dorsal fins. Yeah, a thirst for human blood.
Actually.
Yeah, exactly.
I used to think Leo Chenal was scary, but the more I look at George Karlaftis, he scares me.
He's so nice. They both are, which
nice
is
guy.
why they're both terrifying.
Leo's scary in the like he's gonna shake my hand and accidentally break it kind of way. George is scary in the way of like I want to be his best friend because if I anger him, nobody's gonna find the body.
George Karlaftis, I think, might be the best babysitter on the Kansas City Chiefs. I'll explain. I would trust him entirely around small children. I would trust him entirely to be a good steward of whoever he's in charge of. And if there's a Home Alone situation, they're already dead. They died yesterday. If George Karlaftis is the only one home.
Yeah, and no little kids disobeying George Karlaftis. I mean,
another great point, a fantastic point, and not in a scary way. He's George Karlaftis. Who do you think I am? I'm 6 years old.
Yeah, he's got a deep voice, big, tall guy. Yeah, big hands. Yeah. Probably just put his hand on the kid's forehead, said, "Go to bed." All right,
yes, and good night.
Sit down.
Yeah. No. So yeah, the experience is big. And like I said, we see it in the moments and the energy on. We talked about this the last time I was with you guys, which again, sorry for my sporadic weeks. Was there this roster is filled with depth, but also with guys who bring and give energy, and again, that's a huge, I think, underrated part of Andy Reid's roster construction. We talked about the wide receiver room and Xavier's the way he's talked about DeAndre and the way he's come in and helped him. Like it is I don't know, it's cheesy, but it's a team environment and that I think you think about I think Tyreek was the last kind of drama the team had. I mean, we had the Chris Jones contract negotiations, but those hammered out and Chris was very open about wanting to be here. But yeah, I mean, I think the team has. Well, I guess you had whatever Kadarius Toney did for 2 minutes.
Rice had a little
He was
thing.
here.
Remember?
He
Rice had a little
tried.
thing.
Yeah, he tried, and it got shut down, right? And that's the culture that's important too. So, yeah, I think they just have a really good. I mean, a credit to Andy Reid and Brett Veach for building that and setting that standard. And I think Patrick and Travis and Chris and all those guys really pushed that. Scout is here. He is.
Let's go.
Yeah, sorry, Josh. He's actually a huge fan. I told him you were going to be here tonight, and he's like, "Can you get me an autograph?" And I said, "I don't know if
I
Josh
am
does autographs."
so excited about this development.
Yep, that's the Kingdom Says mascot. Him and Tank over there at Kyle's
You
house.
said
Yeah.
this is also Scout. This is a Scout.
Yes.
Yeah, this is Scout.
Okay. White fluffy dog, not pictured, but artist rendering here is our Scout, which is why we were talking before the show about how important it is to get more Kansas City Scouts merch.
Yes.
So
Yes.
you and I are going to work together and help make this happen because
For
we
sure.
should never have to do like custom Christmas presents ever again. It should just be Scout. This is hello. This
Scout.
is
Perfect.
the KC logo, dog's face on the front. Like I think we need to make this happen.
Yeah.
We frequent the Shawnee Mission Dog Park, and every time we're there, Scout finds another Scout. It's uncanny.
That is, that's a little strange. I think it's okay. I think it's a great dog name, and I think it's okay for multiple dogs to have the same name. I will say that I have not met another three-legged dog named Hopper. Just ours.
A little more
on
rare.
the
Yeah,
front.
That
Yeah.
one seems unique-ish.
Yeah,
it.
it really
Yeah.
is.
Gonna
Really
be,
is.
that's gonna
I
be
Our
love
other
one.
mascot went out of the room with his mom a little bit ago because company was here, and he gets very loud when company comes over, even if he is locked in my
Tank's a
office
big
with
boy.
me.
Yeah.
So
Yeah.
Tank's a big boy. He'll start breaking stuff.
Yeah.
Okay, let's.
yeah,
Oh, thank God it's a dog.
yeah.
yeah. It's a dog. Yeah, it's a dog.
But no, that was
Okay.
actually
Small
Well, now
horse,
we have-
large dog, whatever you want to call it. Yeah.
Well, now we have all of our co-hosts here, including Scout. Let's talk about some football. Let's talk about the things in between the numbers, inside the hashes, and all that good fun stuff. Josh, first, let's start off with the Chiefs' offense because that's obviously the big talking point. Kind of been the thing this season that's been not as great necessarily as the defense. They've turned it on late, and they've definitely figured it out, especially in the playoffs, which, that's typical Chiefs for you. They're going to do exactly what they need to do until they get to the playoffs, and then they'll start really revealing their hand. This matchup with this Eagles defense, you have Vic Fangio on the other side of the ball, someone who has very, very poor luck versus Patrick Mahomes, someone who Andy Reid called like maybe one of his modern day rivals as far as like actual other coaches. He seems like he just is always there. Vic Fangio is always facing the Chiefs in some way or form. Number one defense over there in Philly, a lot of good studs, a lot of young players in that secondary, especially. What are your kind of thoughts going in this matchup, this Chiefs offense, and how they kind of fare going against the Philly defense?
I would say that I think the Chiefs offense has several paths to having a good day here. I don't think they must do it through Kareem Hunt or through Travis Kelce or through Xavier Worthy in the deep ball. I think there are a lot of different angles that they can take to have a productive day on offense. But the thing that I think could undercut almost any of those days is a bad day from the left side of the O-line. And that's not necessarily coming from a place of like a lack of confidence. It's just that's the weak spot. Like video game style, there is a glowing spot on this Chiefs offense that you are supposed to hit. Can you beat Mike Caliendo? Can you make Joe Thuney look like a guard playing tackle? If the Eagles can do that, if they can get pressure, and I'll say this even more confidently. If the Eagles consistently get pressure with 4, I think the Eagles win. Now, that's not a huge take because we got to say that about the Giants against the Patriots, right? Like getting pressure with 4 quickly, it's sort of like, win the turnover battle and take touchdowns, not field goals. Like we should really kind of put it into that level of obvious but true thing. So I think the Chiefs have lots of ways that they can have the offensive day that we need to see from them. And we've seen Mahomes just played a nearly perfect game. And then in the playoffs, we've seen a day where everything ran through Travis Kelce, and we've seen a day where nothing ran through Travis Kelce. Both functional offenses, both victorious. The thing that I'm worried about, and it's kind of interesting, this came up on Weird Games, Seth had this point, but Jalen Carter doesn't really move around. He's just the left defensive tackle, so he lines up on your right guard, right?
Yeah,
so
sure.
Trey Smith versus Jalen Carter, it's Pacific Rim, Godzilla versus Kong, whatever. Like, and Trey Smith can do it for millions of dollars in bonuses because this is his last showcase before he has a chance to reset the market. That's a huge matchup. That's awesome. The other thing, though, that Seth mentioned that has been really sticking around since I went and revisited the arm length numbers is Joe Tooney versus Josh Sweat. Joe Tooney has short arms for a tackle. It's pretty much why he's a guard. He's a absolute technician. He has a ton of physical tools. But Andy Reid, you guys have, I'm sure, talked about this every draft season. Andy Reid likes a tackle with long arms. And Josh Sweat has those, and Joe Tooney does not. That's going to give Sweat a couple of different ways that he can get to Joe Tooney's body or get Tooney's hands off of him in a way that we've seen Tooney struggle with when he's been there at tackle. So I don't think that either Tooney or Caliendo will get baptized. I don't think this is going to be a Tampa Super Bowl type of deal, but I would feel foolish to not even mention them, much in the way that I think I talked my confidence up back in the Tampa game. Ultimately, the rest of the offensive line is in good shape. I think the Eagles' pass rush has been maybe a smidge overstated over these last couple of weeks in the way that they've been getting compared to that previous Eagles Super Bowl team and all of that. But if I got to just like give one guy superpowers for this game, I think it would probably be Joe Tooney. I think if he has a great day, if Mike Caliendo has a really good day, I think the Chiefs offense is going to have a really good day, which means we're all going to have a really good day.
Yeah, it's kind of how it's been going. It kind of lives and dies by how the offensive line plays. And, you know, they've changed their offense a little bit. They've gone a little more quick passing. The run game has decreased a little bit. I think, you know, they've also kind of figured out what they need to do in the run game, though, when you have Kareem Hunt out there as your primary back, just with how this offensive line is set up. But yeah, I mean, like any game, it's usually won in the trenches, and that's a big thing, a big point of contention for the Chiefs this whole year has been the trenches. And it's not, I mean, yeah, the left side of the line has been a mix up and been the weaker side, but you know, early on in the season, especially too, like it was kind of the whole offensive line, like outside of Creed Humphrey, like the right side was got with stunts and twists and all that. The left side was getting just blown by because the left tackle couldn't even get a hand on him. Like this is kind of a big thing that they've had to overcome and adapt their offense to and whatnot. So it's been a change up. It's been a change up from their approach to the beginning of the season. And, you know, I'm sure none of us necessarily anticipated we'd have Joe Tooney being the left tackle in the Super Bowl at the end of the year, but you got to do what you got to do. And it seems like once they've gone to this layout, this starting five, the offense has improved, which is a good sign, you know?
So
we talked about
go ahead,
just
Tom.
the importance of dying a slow death when you are an offensive lineman. And, you know, those young guys, credit to them again. We were always trying to be careful about like playing tackle in the NFL is hard. You know, the biggest problem with that, because Patrick can, you know, he equalizes a lot of deficiencies on the field. But when you're just getting beat, you're not getting hands on people, you're not even slowing them down, then the whole offense gets, you know, you don't even have a chance at that point. So it's like, you know, that's where, you know, I think we would see in the earlier part of the season, you'd like get down in the red zone and we'd have drives stall out because it's like, all right, you know, it's first and goal and we're sacked, you know, it's second and goal and, you know, it's a tackle for loss, you know, and we've seen less of that. It's just about, you know, having less of those negative plays that are instantaneous from that left side of the line. You know, again, even to Caliendo's credit, he's been beat a couple times, but he at least stays in the way long enough. And same thing with Joe Tooney. Like he's just not just going to get evaporated off the line. I think that's huge.
So Josh made a good point about the Tampa Super Bowl and how I remember when we discussed that Super Bowl where we had kind of talked ourselves into that line making it work with the makeshiftedness of all five of those guys. And it is not the same, but I think a little bit of that has happened for the other side in this matchup. A lot of the analysis this week leading up from a lot of the major places has seemed like a lot of people trying to talk themselves into this Eagles pass rush being what it was a couple of years ago when they also didn't get a single sack. I don't know if you guys remember or not, but they wore 0 sack t-shirts at the
put it on a t-shirt,
parade. Baby. So, because there was a lot of conversation about how that defensive line, which is like that defense had a better Brandon Graham on it, along with a bunch of other like certified monsters that had made a name for themselves already. And Dominic Sue was on that team. I think Linval Joseph was also on that team. They had set basically records in pressure and that didn't come to fruition.
What, Kyle? And all that for what?
Yeah, a lot of
that for
that.
what?
And
Exactly.
the thing about Fangio's defenses are they've only sacked Mahomes, I think, 11 times in those 9 games that he's been a part of. Because also keep in mind, Fangio was a consultant for that Eagles defense a couple of years ago in the Super Bowl, when they matched up last time. Now, Philly fans will tell you only one team played on a field that was slippery, so that's their reasoning for that.
It's turf this one, so.
So the thing for me is Jalen Carter is great, but Josh already mentioned he doesn't really change sides. He pretty much stays lined up with Trey Smith. Josh Sweat, for the majority of the year, is lined up which would be against Juwan Taylor, not against Joe Tooney. He's largely been on the left side.
Yeah.
So
yeah, it's very interesting.
If the guy going against Joe Tooney is Nolan Smith, Nolan's fun and all, but Nolan's a speed rusher. There's no Nolan is not built like Josh Sweat. Nolan is not built like George Karlaftis even. Nolan Smith is like an outside linebacker playing edge in a lot of these scenarios.
A little bit smaller, yeah.
I think a lot of this analysis has turned into we got to talk ourselves into them beating the Chiefs because we can't stomach this happening again for this Eagles defense. And I give Brandon Graham all the credit in the world for even trying to play in this game. He's coming off a torn bicep.
Yeah.
Not even 2 months ago, I don't think. He's not going to be 100% of Brandon Graham, and he's also 2 years older than Brandon Graham was when Brandon Graham was Brandon Graham. So
that's true. That's true.
A lot of this to me is Fangio going to change up who he is, and I don't think he will because he really can't do that.
Yeah.
They don't blitz. They're 28th in blitz percentage. They don't blitz. Also, probably not the worst idea because if you blitz Patrick, it usually ends poorly. But it also doesn't work well when you're not getting pressure with 4 and you're sitting in a zone coverage, which is the main thing Fangio likes to do behind his 4-man rushes. I think Trey Smith and Jalen Carter are going to kill each other. That's fine. That's what both of them are there for. And by the way, there's going to be don't be remotely surprised if there's a 15-yard penalty one or both directions in that matchup because both dudes have a nasty streak. Both dudes have been known, especially Jalen Carter has been known to lose his head. He punched one of the Washington offensive guards in the head in the playoff game. That's going to be a nasty matchup. Milton Williams has played much better this year, especially in the playoffs. He's the guy that's probably going to get the Caliendo pushes, but if you rotate Creed there, then you're 2-on-1 and you leave your big guys against your main guys. I'm more confident now probably than I was watching this line against the Texans, because I think that's the best pass rush they were going to see all postseason was in that Texans game.
Mm-hmm.
And they held up pretty darn well. The other thing is Patrick has been getting the ball out even faster at 2.2 seconds in the postseason. It's insanely hard to win in 2.5 seconds. That's the normal. 2.5 is normal. 2.3, 2.2, 2.1. That's not something that's easy to deal with. And you're going to test this Eagles secondary on how well they can deny the early quick game and how well they can deny zone coverage. And Oren Burks is one of the starters for this defense right now. And that, no offense to Oren Burks, but that man has been food for Travis Kelce every time he's seen him.
Yeah, so, especially you see him last year and came in for the Super Bowl in place of Dre Greenlaw. He gets torched by Kelce. Yeah, it's
there's a lot of things that the Chiefs do to help their offensive line, and you're going to see those in this game because Andy's not going to be putting anything away for later. There's no tricks to pull out of the bag at a more important date. This is it. Like we talked about to start the show. So when you get to stuff like this, it's not going to change his attack. He's going to unload the clip, so to speak. There's not going to be anything left, and they're going to run chips and run motions and misdirections and force these 4 defensive linemen for the Eagles to make decisions. And if they get the ball moving, they're not probably going to let them substitute. They will probably keep the tempo up. And if they keep the tempo up, guys get tired. So there's a lot of discussion. And yes, the way the Eagles are going to win this game is they have to get pressure with 4. I'm just not sure this is the defensive line that we saw 2 years ago that actually had a chance to do that.
Well, yeah, and especially too, you think of like the game planning aspect of it, where it's like you know who's lining up where on every snap. It's very different from the other side of the ball, where you have the Chiefs defensive line who they'll line up anywhere and any time. Like Chris Jones will be on the left side, the right side. Like you have constant battles of trying to figure out where their best pass rushers are. And the Chiefs, since they really don't have a lot of that, it's going to be pretty straightforward to them as far as game planning and making the protection matchups and all that stuff. Like they definitely, you talk about defenses and defensive coordinators sticking to what they know and not really adapting. It's one of those things that it can hurt them if you're especially going against Andy Reid, who can just exploit those things so easily.
And they also have rookies out, like their secondary.
Yeah, the back end, that's going to be an interesting conversation to talk about, because you have like Kenyon Mitchell and Cooper DeJean out back there, and you got a couple other young guys in the secondary. You talk about how all the different speed matchups that the Chiefs had with Hollywood Brown, Xavier Worthy. You have who's gonna guard DeAndre Hopkins out of those guys. Like it's a matchup nightmare almost, where it's like, how do you, and Josh, you might have a better idea. How do you think they kind of cover all the different options that the Chiefs have?
I think Kyle mentioned earlier that we were going to get 4-man rushes with a lot of man coverage, and then how they shake that up is going to end up being the thing. Do they do some things that are a little out of character? Are there some unscouted looks and all of that? Which I know we're not to the Chiefs defense yet, but you talk about somebody who has nothing left to hide after this game and one more game to empty the clip or unzip the zipper or whatever you will. Spags is in that category. For Philly, in terms of who they're going to prioritize, I think, again, looking ahead of the defense too, I think on both sides of the ball, there's going to be a lot of information gathering over the first quarter of this game. There was a really good summary from, I think it's just The Honest NFL, a great Twitter account that clearly has a deep knowledge of Andy Reid's offenses. And I do not know who that person actually is, but they are very, very good at sharing some high IQ Andy Reid stuff. And one of the things from a few days ago, I think he retweeted it from ages back, was like a bunch of the questions that Andy Reid wants to get answered in the first 15. And it's both, there are some relatively simple ones, and then there are some where it's like, oh, no, that makes sense that you would want to know that, I guess. I just had never even considered that was happening.
Like how they approach the number 3 receiver in the slot type deal, like all this kind of stuff. Yeah.
There's just so much to it. It's worth your time. It would be annoying for me to read the 20 points or whatever, but it's worth your look. With that being said, I am very, very curious to see if the Eagles start with Travis Kelce. I mentioned earlier, like the differences from the Texans and Bills games. We had no doubt about what Buffalo was going to do. They've been talking about Matt Milano since Matt Milano got there, and they key on Travis Kelce and say, make somebody else beat us. And the Chiefs have to be able to, like that is a totally reasonable way to go about trying to stop the Chiefs offense. Take away the most consistent, best playoff weapon. That makes total sense. I don't think the Eagles can do that. I don't think they can do that. Certainly not one-on-one with Travis Kelce. He could do this till he's 45 years old. One-on-one against Travis Kelce is a bad idea. And no one really does it, honestly. Like, there's always some extra set of eyes. But I don't think they can man up on Kelce. And I don't think you can man up on all of their weapons that they currently have. Like, I have to acknowledge that DeAndre Hopkins is in a super, super, super part-time role right now. And that, like, Juju Smith-Schuster is not a number 2 NFL wide receiver, but he is a guy who has made some really important plays, both with the ball in his hands and without the ball in his hands, as a blocker on the outside. Super useful players, and it wouldn't surprise me one bit if DeAndre Hopkins has a touchdown catch in the red zone or something. Wouldn't surprise me at all. In fact, I absolutely adore that for so many reasons. But none of them financial. I'm not telling you to go take the anytime touchdown. I don't do that. Not a good bet. But if the Chiefs, what is it?
It's like plus 550.
Maybe, you know what? Maybe it is a good bet. I live on the Missouri side. I have accepted what I can and can't bet on over here, and that's okay with me. Probably for my best. But
however, if you would like to enjoy the game, let me tell you about our friends over at Underdog.
I would woof all the way down to hear about your good friends over at Underdog, who I have used here on the Missouri side, no less. That is
they're
where
pretty good.
my Missouri side options come from. But yeah, it's going to be fascinating because I do think they have also, after kind of a slow playoff run for Hollywood Brown. I mean, like anything you get after presumably losing him for the year is a little bit of gravy, but he looked really good at the end of the regular season. Hasn't gotten that workload in the playoffs. I don't think it's because he can't. I think it's because he hasn't. So figuring that out, I know I'm kind of taking a little bit of a cop out on, look, man, if I could tell you what Vic Fangio was going to do for sure, I'd go tell Andy Reid first, and then I'd come back to you guys next. But if they can figure out what that order of operations is for Philly, I do think the Chiefs have a good number of answers.
Yeah, that's a good way to kind of look at it. You know, it's the Chiefs. They're going to do what they need to do. They're gonna employ as much confusion and motion and all that different stuff. Which, as we all know, like in the last Super Bowl, that got the Eagles a couple times. The two biggest plays of the Super Bowl, corn dogs. Like that's exploited one of those 25 points or whatever that Honest FL pointed out. Like, how do they bounce coverage? How do they approach motion? Like, it's just things like that. That is just. And we've heard guys, you know, the Chiefs players and media talk about it all week. It's like the Andy Reid difference in that sense. You know, it's like give Andy Reid a week to prepare for that type of stuff, an extra week, and in a big game like this, like you can guarantee that he's going to be pretty dialed in on a lot of what the Eagles are doing on defense. So that's where I feel like is always the more skewed matchup, in my opinion. Like, I mean, the Eagles defense is great, but when you have Andy Reid calling plays and you have Patrick Mahomes out there who's, you know, over my dead body, he's going to do it. Like, he's going to get it done in key situations. If it's a 3rd and short or a 4th and short, he'll take it himself. Like, he'll make the most, like, the best choices with the football. We haven't seen a real turnover really in like the past 10 weeks. There was one last week and a botched handoff, but other than that, there hasn't been a real turnover as far as like interceptions or like big time fumbles or anything like that. Like, they're playing their best, most disciplined, locked in football at the right time. And that's probably going to be the difference maker as far as the offensive matchup. Let's switch over to the defensive side for the Chiefs going against this high octane Eagles offense, highlighted by Saquon Barkley, obviously the offensive player of the year, who has just been on a tear ever since he joined Philly. Even this, you know, besides you have AJ Brown and Devontae Smith and Dallas Goedert, like, the amount of weapons, it's much different than the last Super Bowl. Obviously, it's a bigger test, probably on paper at least, than what we saw last Super Bowl versus this Eagles team. Josh, right back to you once again for the defense of the Chiefs. You mentioned Spags, who's he's going to be in his bag and he's going to let everything roll. Main priority, obviously, stopping Saquon, limiting that thing and holding him under. You know, we haven't seen 100+ yard rusher in the Chiefs in a very long, or against the Chiefs in a very long time. Saquon's line for the Super Bowl is like over 100, I think, already. So it's that's probably going to be where we make and break with this matchup, Josh.
Yeah, and I'm not really too worried about what his final number ends up being. I'm worried about how he gets there. If he has, I'm kind of pulling numbers out of thin air. So if my yards per carries don't really add up, give me some leash. But if he has 25 carries for 125 yards and a touchdown or something, if his longest carry of the day is a 20-yarder, I'm good with that. I mean, if it's a 20-yard touchdown and a 19-yard touchdown and an 18-yard touchdown, you know, it adds up. But the point for me with Saquon that has me respecting him in a way that I haven't had to for other really, really good running backs in high-profile games against the Chiefs. I'm constantly thinking back to Derrick Henry in the Titans AFC Championship game a million years ago now. But the thing that Saquon can do is just end a drive by himself. Like, he is a single explosive machine. Obviously, the offensive line does a lot of that lifting for him. But when he's able to say, all right, so you've just put together whatever the Commanders did, a 16-play, 80-yard drive that took 7.5 minutes, and the Eagles hand it off to Saquon Barkley and touchdown. Okay, well, back to you guys. That sucks on a variety of levels. Obviously, the vibes are miserable. Obviously, it's a brutal way to send your offense right back out on the field. But the most important thing is that it takes away any opportunity to take advantage of a mistake the Eagles might make offensively. So if they limit Saquon to a normal, good running back day that's doing it 3-4 yards at a time, I'm okay with that. If he has a bunch of big explosive runs, I think the Chiefs have a little bit of trouble to sort through there.
Yeah, that's always usually the case. Yeah, those big explosive runs have been Saquon Barkley's bread and butter, where you just brace him out. And, there's been some maybe some poor tackling efforts from a couple of these defenses he runs it on. And, I know there's a bunch of stats for Philly's offense this year where a lot of their success has come against bottom ranked defenses and stuff like that. And, all that kind of stuff. But obviously just a really, really talented guy with a really good offensive line in front of him that, you're going to have to play your best. You're going to have to be up to sound. Tom, what are you thinking as far as the trenches battle with Saquon?
Yeah. So, I mean, man, the Eagles offensive line is a thing of beauty. And it's almost like it's kind of almost like the inverse of the Chiefs, because it's like their tackles are really, really good. Their vulnerabilities are probably on the inside a little bit. I think Mekhi Becton, who's the reclamation project for the Eagles, has played really well at guard for them, but I think he can be had. I think he gets moved into inside to guard because he wasn't really the most athletic, nimble guy. I think the biggest thing, and then this can go like to the left side of that line, like if those big guys get out moving in space, that's where like it's sketchy, it's scary. That's where maybe you have Leo hanging out over there just ready to sacrifice himself and take one of those guys out so you can play cleanup in the alley. But yeah, it's a tough one. I mean, Lane Johnson is one of the best to do it at the right tackle spot, and never ever jumps early either, unlike the Chiefs. Sorry, sorry, not talking about that. We're moving on. Yeah, good offensive line. I think the interior could get some push, some pressure. I could see somebody like Turk Wharton making some plays, getting around Cam Jurgens, getting around Mekhi Becton. Dickerson's a really good guard, but yeah, I mean, I think he's not a world-class athlete at the position, so there's maybe some room to be had, but it's going to be tough sledding for the guys. Obviously, Spagnuolo's going to do what he does, but just going back to the idea of containing Saquon, like the thing that's hard with him is he's such a freak athlete, is you could, in theory, do like 10 of your 11 guys could do the right thing on that play. And it takes that one guy to miss, and Saquon will just, and then he houses it. And that is demoralizing when a team can run on you like that. It's rough. But the Chiefs have built a defense that is very good at the run fits, at flowing through, at crashing down. So it's going to be, I think if you, like Josh said, if we can kind of force him to keep those runs more on the inside, make him run into the teeth of the defense, I think the Eagles are going to want to test the edges a lot, especially with, just being blunt, Nick Bolton has just looked a step slower than he already is, and has looked out of position a lot, especially this playoff run. So if I see that, I'm sure the Eagles see that. And Nick, if you're listening, I hope this is motivation, and I love you. Please don't hurt me. But that's just the truth. There's maybe some, if you're looking at the defense, you're going, oh yeah, maybe we can get to these edges here. Spagnuolo is also probably aware of that, and coaches around it. But again, it takes one person to be out of position, and Saquon can house it, and you won't catch him because he's just, I'm pretty sure he's just one muscle and one tendon in a human body. It's a little wild.
The amount he benches, you're probably right.
I mean,
we're talking Adrian Peterson type build here. I mean, that's what he reminds me.
About as good as you can make it in a lab. Yeah.
So the thing for me is a couple of the things you guys both mentioned. A lot of the teams that have struggled mightily with Saquon in this rushing attack have had one guy not do their job, have had, as Garrett mentioned, we'll call it questionable tackling. That's not something this Chiefs defense has had a problem with since Spags took it over. Their motto has largely been, and it's been repeated by players forever, do your 111. Clyde used to say it all the time for the offense too, but specifically for this defense, do your 111, which is do your portion of your job, and then look to make an extra play if you need to. The 111 plus, I think, is what they called it this year when they were playing Buffalo last couple weeks ago. I don't. There's not discipline issues on this defense. There may be the occasion where somebody's a half step slow.
Yeah.
Tom makes a valid point. That it's part of the reason we've had the discussions we've had about that linebacker future here after this season. But he had a huge game 2 years ago in this Super Bowl against this Eagles team. Now, different running backs, all fair. But they don't miss tackles traditionally, at least not routinely. Maybe one here, maybe occasionally, and that's where Saquon can hurt you, is if you miss one and he takes it to the house. But they don't struggle to do that.
And they don't better tackling teams, yeah.
They've not given up a 100-yard game to a running back this season, if I'm not mistaken.
No,
still haven't.
It's been many years, yeah.
It was Lamar Jackson was the only person to crack 100, and that was week 1.
Oh, he actually had 100. That's crazy. Yeah, that's Lamar. You know,
and
Lamar
again, that's quarterback.
MVP, you know,
right? So their strategy for me in this game, we know Jalen Hurts isn't going to throw the ball over the middle of the field. He just simply doesn't do it. Like
not very often.
Every passing chart you've ever seen from Jalen Hurts is hashes out and back. Like, there's no over the middle. If it's over the middle, it's on one random crosser occasionally. When you don't have to defend the entire field, it allows you some freedom. And Josh mentioned it earlier, Spags has got nothing left to keep in his pocket. You're going to get the whole enchilada this game. And I think they're going to run blitz. And I think they're going to bring pressure to try to get to Hurts and Barkley in one unit. Now, the other question for me about this offensive line for Philly is their health. They were not sure Cam Jurgens was going to play in the NFC Championship game. He did not start. It took Landon Dickerson coming down with a knee injury that he could hardly walk on in that game that required him to come back in and play. Back injuries, as we're all familiar with Mitchell Schwartz, they don't just go away. And Chris Jones is going to be on that interior. And the other guy that keep an eye on it, who is built for this game, is Mike Pennell.
Yeah.
This is the type of matchup where you get a heavy dose of Mike Pennell and Chris Jones and Leo Chenal and George Karlaftis and even Mike Dana to an extent. You mentioned Turk. Turk will be more involved, I think, in the passing situations when they try to go that route and take advantage of some of that against Becton, because I agree with you. I think Becton can be had. He's probably been their weakest link on that O-line. But I'm not so sure how healthy this Philly offensive line is. And I'm very curious to see if they can hold up for 60 minutes getting punched in the mouth, because this is going to be a fight inside, especially with Pennell and especially with Chris Jones. I'll give you a bold one. I don't think Saquon goes for 100. I really don't.
I don't either. Yeah, I don't either. That's obviously the main goal of the Chiefs defense, is to limit Saquon and to get the Eagles into passing situations, which is definitely the more favorable thing. Now, you obviously look at the secondary for the Chiefs. You get Jalen Watson back, that's been a huge addition to the defense. You know, you still have Justin Reed out there and Trent McDuffie and some of the young guys like Jamari Connor, who I know Josh loves, and Jaden Hicks and all that. Josh, in your opinion, the secondary, how do you kind of have them working out versus the weapons that Philly has, especially the tight end position? You know, Dallas Goedert, really good tight end, and Chiefs have struggled covering tight ends this year. Might be a similar trend that we see in this game, but outside of eliminating Saquon, what do you think the secondary kind of looks like in this game?
Did you want to add? You were gonna sneak something else in, Kyle. I was gonna let you get the
I was gonna say before Josh goes, Josh can talk secondary, and then if you want, I know you got some time stuff to deal with. So if you want to do that and then give us your, I think, did you already you gave prediction on Only Weird, right?
I did. I'll give you guys the score and everything. I'll do the whole shebang.
And then we'll let you duck out, but we do appreciate you joining us for tonight for the first large chunk of this. So
as long as the Kansas City Chiefs are playing in the Super Bowl, I will do a podcast with you three. That is a pact I'm willing to make. I guess I could revoke that later in life, but for right now, I'm going to go ahead and say that it's very, very valid. I think the secondary is going to be fascinating because the one thing that we haven't really that I haven't heard almost anybody really talking about is Shamari Connor and Devontae Smith. Like when you talk about where the Chiefs have been gotten in the slot this year, Shamari Connor is still a really fun, like heat-seeking missile of a safety playing slot corner. And when he's in man coverage there, it's a little bit of a tough time. The fascinating thing is that with Trent McDuffie, after living on the outside since Jalen Watson got hurt, A.J. Brown is probably a better physical matchup for Jalen Watson. It's still a good matchup for the Eagles because A.J. Brown is an alien, and I love watching him play football.
Really good.
But this would be the time for me, and also, again, kind of contrasting what I think the Eagles should do versus what the Eagles have done in terms of hunting some more matchups, which they haven't really done this year. I think Chris Jones should basically spend the first half of the game going across that offensive line, just stress testing it, right? Like just figuring out like who is more banged up than they seem. Who do I have the advantage of matchup wise? He probably already knows who he thinks that is right now. But with Chris Jones doing that up front, pressure's always, of course, vital. If Trent McDuffie just follows Devontae Smith around in this game, I'm cool with it. If he's in the slot and Jalen Watson is pretty much just following A.J. Brown around, I'm okay with that. If you need what, Jahan Dotson to be, if he gets Najee Johnson or Joshua Williams a few times, go ahead and dap up and play the rep. Let's see, because that's who it should come down. Like if you're kind of tearing out best versus best and traits versus traits, that's really what I'd like to see them do a little bit more of. I think the way that they've used Jaden Hicks more later in the year has been really fun. Justin Reed is very good. Brian Cook is very good, but it would be great if he could catch the balls that hit him in the hands this time. They're just huge opportunities that he just wasn't able to bring in the AFC Championship game. This would be a very good time to do that. But I am really, really, really interested to see how the Chiefs do treat those top two receivers. Do they ensure that they always have one of their top two corners on those guys? I'm not really afraid of McDuffie on A.J. Brown for chunks of the game. Like, that's okay. It's just a physical advantage for Brown. But I want McDuffie and Watson to end up on Brown and Smith as often as possible. Obviously, Spags will do some Spagsy things when Trent McDuffie can't cover anyone because he's in the back of Jalen Hurts' helmet. Like that sort of thing will happen. But as a baseline, that's what I'm rooting for. And I'm going 30-24 Chiefs. I do think that maybe there's been a tiny bit of overhype for the Eagles pass rush. I think the Chiefs do enough. Not need to dominate it. I think they do enough to limit that pass rush. I think Patrick Mahomes has an absolutely undeniable Patrick Mahomes game. I don't know who the weapons will be. I do feel good about the fact that I think there are several paths to getting to 30 points, and I think the defense should feel perfectly good about giving up 24. If that's what they can manage here, get an early lead, and all of a sudden Jalen Hurts is playing from behind and throwing the ball in a way that he hasn't had to do almost at all this season, certainly not down multiple scores. If you can make the Eagles play on your time, I feel even better about this game. So I think the Chiefs are the better football team. I don't think we're going to need to see this go to overtime this year. And look, again, if they play this game 10 times, the Eagles are winning 3 or 4 of them. Football is too hard. These teams are too good. That is a fact of the game. But I think the Chiefs are winning 6 or 7. I think they're the better football team because the quarterback matters. Like, the Eagles are a very good roster, 1-22 or 1-53. So are the Chiefs. That gets underrated at times in my book, too. So give me the best day of Joe Thuney and Shamari Connor's life, and let's celebrate a three-peat. I think that's what I'd love to see. I think we'll at least see the win. I think we'll have a good time. It'll be a little bit close, but ultimately it ends the way we want it to.
Tell everybody where they can find you, because I know there's been some change in life. And
There has. Right now, it's a pretty small tent. Follow me across socials, your choice of various posting platforms, at JB Brisco. I've got jbbrisco.com on Blue Sky. I'm still JB Brisco on Twitter. I'm JB Brisco on Threads, all of those places. Only Weird Games, Tuesdays and Thursdays on KC Sports Network. And it's been a season-long gig with 96.5 The Fan. I'll be on next week throughout their shows, and I'll have a 3-hour-long spectacular. God, I hope it's spectacular. From 6 to 9 on 96.5 The Fan here in Kansas City on Monday night. So It'll either be a lot of celebrating and maybe a little bit of a peek to the future, or it will be a lot of free agency talk. I haven't mentally prepared
Yeah.
for that.
Get the draft prospect list out. Come on.
If the Chiefs lose, you should tune in just to see how I handle that. It'll just
Well, yeah.
be a difficult evening for
That's
me.
a whole other
You need a
thing.
primer on the draft. I got you.
I'm
No,
not.
we still got-
I personally, I don't have me. I'm not ready for draft season. I need
Tom's
one
been
more
ready for a
post game
long time.
Monday, one more victory Monday, and then I'll be
One
good.
more.
So,
Yep. One more.
appreciate
Josh,
you, fellas.
yeah, appreciate you, man. Appreciate you coming on.
I'll take the out here, and hopefully we can do this again next year. Hopefully sometime before next February. But specifically, go ahead and book me Friday ahead of next year's Super Bowl. If the Chiefs aren't playing, I will not be here.
We're gonna hold it.
We
to
got
it. We're
you.
gonna hold it.
We got
I'll
it.
take
Have a
it.
great rest of the night, my man.
Thanks, fellas. You have a good one.
Thanks, Josh.
All right. That was awesome. Always love having Josh
More
coming on.
space down here.
Yeah, it's more wide open, huh? Yeah, it's not as cramped. Okay. And you guys have any other closing thoughts on the Chiefs defense?
Yeah, I mean, I've got I've got thoughts on both sides of the ball still, frankly. But
we got time.
for the
A little bit of
defensive side, what Josh said is a lot of the same thoughts that I've had. The ability that Jalen Watson being the second corner provides this defense changes a lot of the dynamic about what Spags can and can't do. You saw him kind of basically playing with one hand tied behind his back when he had to leave Trent outside all year long. And you've seen with Jalen on the field, they've been able to move Trent around and do more again with Trent. I'm with Josh fully on I want to see Trent in the slot if that's where they're going to put Devontae Smith, because here's what Kellen Moore does, guys. He does the same thing every time. There is not an Andy Reid-ishness or a Kyle Shanahan to him. They don't use motion hardly ever. Like they just don't. They're one of the lowest teams in the league at using motion.
Yeah.
If Spags knows exactly where you're going to line up every time you line up, they don't have to. They can hold those disguises and those late movements and the blitz changes that we've seen him dial up and tear apart. No offense to Jalen Hurts, better quarterbacks.
Mm-hmm.
Josh Allen, Joe Burrow, Lamar Jackson, Tom Brady. Multiple times he has got Tom Brady on plays and looks, even going back to with the Giants when he was the DC in New York.
Yeah.
20
If he's getting
years
Tom
ago
Brady,
or
I think
whatever it
he's
is
gonna
now.
I think he's going to get Jalen Hurts. Yeah, if he's getting Tom.
And Jalen Hurts has struggled mightily this season with the blitz. Their answer for the blitz this year has largely been, Saquon, do something, please. Or here's a moonball prayer to A.J. Brown on the outside, or to Dallas Goedert on a crosser. Like, the answers from Philly have largely been the same answers all year when it comes to this stuff. And we just watched a team who had the same answers for their test, and the Chiefs said, yeah, that's cute. What else can you do? Because we're not going to let you do that. And for me, with everything that Spags does, one of the things he does the best is confuse quarterbacks.
Mm-hmm.
He brings pressure and does things from different ways and different formations, sometimes out of the same formation over and over again, and then just doesn't do what he's been doing the whole time with that look. And all of a sudden, you have offensive linemen going the wrong way, not knowing who to put their hands on, and their quarterback is getting killed throwing up prayers, and they lose an AFC championship game. Like, this allows him, and I think as much as Shamari has been involved over the last couple of years, I think we've seen him start to get phased out in some instances, and Jaden Hicks phase in some instances.
Hicks,
and I think that's going to a trend that you're going to see continue in this football game, because Jaden Hicks gives you another tackler when it comes to Saquon running the ball, because Jaden Hicks is not afraid to hit anybody. That dude is violent when it comes to hitting people. He is another piece of a linebacking group that just likes to be physical. And he's a safety, and I get that, but when he's playing down in the box and he's down in the slot, he's not a safety at that point. So there are more answers for the Chiefs defense to attest than I think Philly's offense has. And I'm big time set. I don't know how much I trust the health of this Eagles O-line. I just don't. They even Mekhi Becton even came out of the Commanders game, I think, briefly for a couple of plays where he was nicked up. I don't think he's on the injury report, but I would expect Landon Dickerson to be wearing a brace on that knee, even though he's been a full participant all week. I would expect Cam Jurgens he's been a full participant all week too, but it's a back injury. And when you get torqued on and you get pushed on and you get a little extra lean on, and Chris Jones and Mike Pennell aren't there to make sure you feel good, they're there to make you pay. It's a lot different ball game. And no offense to the Washington Commanders defense, but they don't have anything like any of those dudes.
No, yeah. When you look at last week's, the Eagles and the Commanders, I don't take much from it just because I think that the Chiefs defense is way better than what Washington put out there and some of those tackling efforts.
Especially in the run game.
Yeah, exactly. That's something that, the Spags knows how to approach it. And it's, not even just Spags, but all the guys, like we saw last year in the Super Bowl against Christian McCaffrey, they shut him down. It was like the big guys up front, Mike Pennell, Derek Nottie, Leo Chenal, George Karlaftis, all those guys, Chris Jones even in there, like they dominated the line of scrimmage in most of that game. And that was kind of the deciding factor of limiting Christian McCaffrey and holding him to some of those big plays. Now, you have the Christian McCaffrey had more of an aspect of like the passing game to him. They do that a little bit with Saquon as well, which you always got to be careful.
Really,
not like that.
More like
Josh's point
and swings. Which still, if he's your check down, that's still a dangerous guy out there. If you're doing a little swing pass, so. That's my priority. I think when you look at this defense, number one, shut down Saquon, and then just try to limit some of the big plays. The Eagles, they're going to get theirs a couple times. Like we saw it in the last Super Bowl, like the big catch to AJ Brown and all that stuff. Like they're going to get a couple of theirs for sure. But I think that the Chiefs defense, especially this year's Chiefs defense, who's much more experienced in the league. You're not going against a bunch of rookies. You're going against a well-seasoned Trent McDuffie and George Karlaftis and all these guys. That's the difference to me, Tom, that I think the experience and just the familiarity with where they've been and what this Eagles team can do. I think that's going to be a different story than what we saw. I don't think it's going to be nearly as high scoring for the Eagles as what their last showing was, even when they have Saquon.
Yeah. So I was looking this up while you guys were talking. Garrett, do you know who has the NFL record for most carries by a running back in a single season? I know Kyle knows this, but do you know who has it?
Most carries.
I
can't say I know. It
is a Kansas City Chiefs player.
Okay. Let's see. Is it someone who was around when I was alive?
Yes.
Mm-hmm.
Okay. Is it Priest?
No.
Nope.
Is it my boy LJ?
It is.
It
is. With 416 carries. Do you know how many carries Saquon Barkley is at for the season, including postseason?
Probably pretty close. I know he's about like very close to the overall single season rushing record, which is Terrell Davis's, right?
I'm not talking yards. I'm talking carries.
I know. Yeah, I'm going to say he's
411 carries for the year.
Yeah.
So I'm not going to bet on him wearing down necessarily in this game, but that could be a factor. They're talking about the illness that went through that locker room. That could be a big piece for the, in terms of the conditioning. But the other thing that I want to say, and Josh kind of touched on this a little bit. You have AJ Brown, you have Devontae Smith. That's it. Dallas Goedert's okay. He's a good red zone threat, all that stuff. He can beat you if he needs to. They didn't use him much this year. This team is got a lot of talent on it, but they rely on their right-hand people a lot. It's Saquon, it's AJ, it's Devontae, and then Jalen with his legs.
I was about to say, Jalen is that. Yeah,
we haven't talked about that, but Jalen with his legs is another piece that they'll have to account for. I think they will. Spags usually does a pretty good job of handling those things, but that's something to consider.
Yeah.
All of that said, Steve Spagnuolo, just like Bill Belichick and some of the other greatest defensive coaches in the NFL history, will make you win using your left hand. And I look at this Eagles offense, and their left hand is their passing game. And I look at the matchups in the passing game, and I say the Chiefs can afford to give some extra attention to A.J. Brown. They can man up on Devontae Smith. That's a good matchup, him and McDuffie. That'll be fun to watch. Jahan Dotson, I'm not losing sleep over. I'm not losing sleep over Anais Smith or Paris Campbell or any of these other wide receivers, Johnny Wilson. Like, I'm not worried about those. And you look at this production from these guys through the season, it's not. It's a very top-heavy offense for the Eagles. And it's going to sound a little backwards. Well, yeah, if you shut down all their superstars, that's the difference between the two teams in some ways, is if you shut down DeAndre Hopkins, we're going to go to Juju Smith-Schuster. If you shut down Xavier Worthy, we're going to go to Travis Kelce. If you shut down Travis Kelce, we're going to run. I mean, there's more options. It's not necessarily as dependent on that. Now, I say all that, we could have some unknown superstar emerge. Maybe Johnny Nelson or Paris Campbell has the game of their lives in the Super Bowl. But I think when you look at matching up those pieces, I feel a lot better about making them play with their left hand. And obviously that's contingent on shutting down Saquon. And that's contingent on, getting his, avoiding the explosive runs. And I hate when people do this, and this is just for the sake of numbers, right? This is because he had the run, the 60-yard run against the Commanders. And the timing of that was huge. If you take that out and you go 14 carries, it's 14 carries for a whole lot less. And it's about a 4-yard per carry clip. So again, he had that against, the Commanders. So we're not taking that away. That happened in real life. That's kind of if you regress Patrick Mahomes to the mean, that's not what I'm doing. I'm saying if you eliminate that piece of the game, Saquon Barkley looks kind of human, which is a hard thing to make Saquon Barkley do, but they have to be ready to set the edges. They have to do what they do, and that's where it's a good matchup because, as Kyle said, yes, this team does have some players on that are not that, like, on the defensive side, that aren't going to be your world-class athletes, but they do their job, and they set their edges, they scrape down, they do what they're supposed to. And I think that is an advantage for the Chiefs. Going back, the Commanders, that was an interesting game, but also, he played really well. Barkley played well against the Eagles or against the Rams.
It's a really young Rams defense.
He's on a tear, but that momentum, and especially running, it is hard to stick with the run game if you're down.
Yeah, if you get down early, it's gonna be tough.
Yeah. I think it was the Packers game where he didn't. Did he go over 100 yards all 3 postseason games? Yes, he did.
Yeah, it wouldn't surprise me, especially because the way that Rams game script flipped with all the snow and everything that took place.
If you're playing in Philly, those couple games, that does make the difference. Yeah, look at the defense. That's going to be the main thing. Shutting Saquon down, getting them to pass the ball, just playing them right into their hand, which is what Spags is best at, like making them play the exact type of football that Spags wants them to play. That's going to be the difference maker.
Well, and I know people, you're not giving Jalen Hurts his credit. Okay, he's been fine. He also hasn't been their answer this year. He wasn't their answer last year either. As a matter of fact, part of the reason they struggled mightily down the stretch and kind of fell apart last season was because he struggled down the stretch last year. They have to win in a couple of ways. Their offense has to do a couple of things or they don't have a chance in this game. They have to do certain things well. to win in this game. And like Tom mentioned, there's a lot of talent, but there's some deficiencies when it comes to depth behind some of those pieces. Like if Paris Campbell and Johnny Wilson have the game of their life, they may still not win this game, guys. It's probably more likely that if they have to have the game of their life, they're not winning the game.
Two catches for 30 yards. Yeah.
So the strategy will be make somebody else beat us. And it will be make Jalen Hurts beat you doing things that he's not comfortable doing. It will be make him throw the ball over the middle of the field. It will be make him deal with pressure because he's a quarterback that holds the ball and takes a lot of sacks. It's been one of his biggest issues since he got in the league. He even had that problem at Alabama, and he had it when he was at Oklahoma. Like, it's not something that's new to this. And Spags and this group have had, we've already talked about it, multiple weeks to get ready for this. They've done their homework. They know what their goals are going to be. It's going to be up to the Philly offensive line and Saquon Barkley to do the things that they know, the Chiefs know they're going to do, and still be able to do them successfully anyway. That's what this game comes down to on the offensive side of the ball for Philly, is because, like I said, we talked about Kellen Moore. He's been fine. They've changed some of what he wanted to do because he started the year wanting to air it out all over the place, and they didn't have a great time to start the year. And they went more into the running game, and that's where they found their success. Doing that, being somewhat forced to play one or two ways is a bad recipe against the defensive coordinator who has a defense that is built to play any way that you want to play. And I talked about this for multiple seasons now. He has all of what he wants up front. He can rotate in different defensive linemen at any given point to do certain things. It's why Derek Notty's name has been mentioned. It's why Mike Pennell's name has been mentioned. It's why Felix Anudike-Uzomah may see some time in this game because he plays the run so well.
Yeah, that's what it's going to come down to for the Chiefs. And I think we've hashed out enough of what the defense and the offense. And let's talk about real quick. Pivot to special teams real quick. Yeah, because we haven't talked to that. I know we're going decently long tonight. We appreciate everyone for joining us. We have a heck of a lot of people in here right now, so we really appreciate it.
I haven't seen them pop up. Are you holding out on me, Garrett? Are you hiding the comments?
We've only gotten one. You guys can fire them away and join in if anytime you guys like.
What am I going to do? Kyle, start showing some skin. Let's go. Come on. We got to get some engagement.
Take the Nate Taylor route, unbutton the shirt a little.
Eligible? Bash him. I mean, we'll give Garrett away. That's right. Comment and leave a comment below. Say, I want the skinny one. The tall, lanky. I don't know how to describe you.
Tall, lanky, skinny. All those are accurate.
You and Kyle, there's a lot of overlap here.
The non-married one.
Kyle's got
there we go. Well, technically, I'm not.
Unfortunately, this is permanent. That's not going anywhere, guys. I've been locked up for a while.
Somebody comment below and save me.
But
right now,
I know.
I shaved my head for this. Let's talk, guys.
We're gonna do the special team thing for sure.
Special team.
I do want to point out on the offense, teams have moved the ball against this Eagles defense in the playoffs. Even the Rams moved the ball. The Commanders, when they stopped throwing it on the ground, moved the ball. That none of those teams have Patrick Mahomes at quarterback. And you're going to get the unloaded clip from Andy. They're going to move the ball. The Eagles are going to have to score points if they want to win this game. It's not going to be, we beat the Chiefs 23-21. That's not how this offense has operated in the playoffs and how they're going to approach this game. There's room to move the ball, and they will do it. And you're going to have a possessed Kareem Hunt on your hands. And if you think that they're just going to drop back and throw it the whole time, even with the offensive line alignment that we've talked about not being as conducive to certain portions of this run game, the one piece who has still run the ball well in this run game with this offensive line layout is Kareem Hunt. And nobody wants a Super Bowl more right now than that dude.
That's true. That's true. Okay, let's get into special teams talk real quick. We've talked a little bit about it this week. You know, Harrison Butker, we know who Harrison Butker is. He's automatic. He's going to be clutch exactly when we need him. Kicking indoors. He has a Super Bowl record for longest field goal made in the Super Bowl. Like Harrison Butker, I don't feel like there's has to be any kind of worry about him. You know, on the other side of the ball, Jake Elliott, he's had an up and down year. He's definitely been a little more questionable, a little less automatic. Definitely doesn't have the range that
you're being nice. He struggled.
Yeah, I'm trying. You know, I mean, he's had as a younger player, he's had a decent career in Philly so far, but this year it has been a little more rough, and especially with how this Chiefs field goal unit has been rolling out there with Justin Reed and Leo Chenal just causing havoc on every down. Basically, that's going to be something to look for, and you know, we've seen many times that these missed kicks of either extra points or field goals or whatever, like those couple points you miss out on, they can come back to bite you pretty hard, especially against the Chiefs when you're in critical situations like that.
Jake Elliott is 1 of 7 on kicks above 50 yards this year.
Yeah, it's not a good range. Yeah, not a good range. Definitely does not have the leg of.
He's also
Harrison.
missed 1 each from 30 and 40 plus, respectively. But he has missed 5 from 50 plus and missed 1 from 60 plus.
Yeah,
he has not had a typical Jake Elliott year.
Yeah. So look for the kickers to be a little bit of a factor.
That could be a problem for them.
Yeah, especially, yeah, exactly. My big thing on special teams that I'm going to be looking at, the return game. You know, you got to look at the return game. Nico or Mihio, what a dog. What an absolute playoff run that he's been having so far in that return specialist role. He's having just a really good, like it just shifts the momentum, you know, whenever he has that big punt return or a big kick return or something like that. Like he's been popping off at least one every game the past many games, you know, and obviously the Eagles are very familiar with getting big punt returns taken on them in the Super Bowl. We saw it happen with Kadarius Toney a couple years ago. That was probably the most electric play in that Super Bowl. Looking back on it, like it was awesome. So I'm looking forward to seeing what Nico brings out of his bag. I'm low-key, you know, if he houses one, I would not be surprised. I think he at least has a big return, if not two. And that could be a very big momentum swinger, especially if it happens later in the game.
The Philly special teams is better in the return game than Buffalo's was. Granted, again, that Buffalo special teams was pretty bad all year, so that's not exactly saying a ton.
Yeah.
But we talked about Andy and Spags kind of having unload the clip type of stuff. You're going to see some stuff from the special teams unit. I don't think this game is going to go with Dave Tobe just quietly going into the night. They expect the return game to play a role in these games, especially at the end of the seasons. You heard about it when Nico talked about what Travis said to him after the fair catch in the Houston game of that's not being great. Go be great.
Go be great.
That's a mindset and a mentality that not a lot of teams have. You've seen a lot of, especially with the new kickoff rules and everything and how things have kind of changed. You've seen a lot of teams just do the whole, we'll just take the kick that's going to give us the ball at the 30 and move on with our day. That's not how this Chiefs team operates. And I know Uncle Dave has gotten a lot of flack at different points in time in his tenure in Kansas City, even from some of us on this podcast. Garrett.
Me. This guy.
But he's the best special teams coach in the league, and he has been for like 20 years. There is a reason that Andy trusts him and has him as involved as he is in their roster decisions and in their game schemes and setups. He's part of the reason he has I think he's the associate head coach title.
Yeah.
So I expect them to be as dialed in as they've been on special teams, and they've already blocked a couple of kicks this year. They almost had another one. They ended up letting Buffalo take points off the board because they got a offsides penalty where he wasn't offsides, but that's besides the point. It changes the game, and it's the little things. And I already mentioned Jake Elliott has struggled from 50. and I think he's also missed an extra point or two this year at points in time. You cannot leave points on the table against this Chiefs team. They will punish you for it.
Yeah, Bills found that
And
out last week. Yeah, Bills found that out.
and if you struggle at all in the return game, he's going to hurt you. The kid has spent his time. He was an IR stash a couple of years ago. He was on the practice squad this year after many thought he was going to make the roster to start this season. He's done nothing but work his butt off all year long on practice squad. And then as soon as he got the call up, I know he's had a little bit of a fumble issue occasionally once or twice.
Yeah, he had one.
He will hold on to the ball. He can break a game open in a hurry. Just like we talk about Saquon taking 160. Well, you know who else can hurt if they take 160 or house one on you? The special teams unit. And he's shown in back-to-back games now, he's a threat to do that to a special teams unit if they're not extremely disciplined in everything that they are trying to do when it comes to coverage. If you fall asleep for a half a second or you're a little bit out of position and there's a gap and you don't get a clean hand on him, you're not bringing him down with just with an arm tackle on his thigh as he's running by you. You better hit him and you better get a hand on him and you better wrap him up or he could change the field position in a hurry. And Patrick Mahomes on a short field, that's not good news for you.
The Eagles are going to have to play tight, disciplined special teams. Make no mistakes. Don't pour water on their shirt like I just did while you were in the middle of your take. And you can't. Don't do what I did. You got to be cool under pressure. Don't pull a Tom. Yeah, no. If y'all saw my reaction, then I was like, let's have Garrett cut me. Nope, we're live, guys.
Live.
So we're owning it. You make mistakes in the Super Bowl like this, you're not going to win. Don't.
Okay. Well,
don't do it.
That's a good little segue to our ending spiel, as you might say, game predictions, all that, our final thoughts. Also, I want to get hold on, I'll talk about it in a second. One thing though, before we get into all that, guys, what do you think about hearing from our partners over at Underdog? We all think about.
I think we should let them talk about that. We should talk about the big game.
Yeah, let's hear a message from our friends at Underdog on the big game. Chiefs Kingdom, the big game is right around the corner, and there's no better way to get in on the action than our friends at Underdog. Underdog is the place to play if you're a fan looking to cash in on all of your favorite athletes' performances. It's available in over 30 states, including Missouri, California, and Texas. Just call your shot by picking higher or lower on 2 or more players' stats for a shot to win real money. Here's some of our picks for the big game. And for this weekend's festivities, Underdog is celebrating by giving all users, both new and existing customers, a no-sweat entry, which means you either cash in or you get your entry fee back in bonus credit. There will also be a Travis Kelce free pick for every new customer who signs up on Underdog before the game. So come join the fun on Underdog and sign up using our code KingdomSays to get up to $1,000 in bonus cash when you make your first deposit and a free pick. Once again, that is code KingdomSays, thanks to our friends at Underdog. Wow, thanks Garrett for that awesome message from our partners at Underdog. What a great company.
We got a celebrity to do that little video ad.
Celebrity guest spot right there. Mr. Garrett
also,
Williams,
I do want to. I don't know. Was it in there that they're doing a no sweat for this?
Yep, it was in there.
Okay, I thought I heard it, but I just wanted to make sure that we definitely highlighted.
The last day to get in on that is tomorrow night for that no sweat. So definitely check them out. Promo code KingdomSays.
I will highlight. I will give you guys a pick of mine that I like. Travis only needs 3 catches to catch Jerry Rice in Super Bowl receptions all time.
Ooh.
That's Jerry Rice, by the way, guys. Now, they currently have his higher or lower at 6.5 receptions, so I don't really love that as much, but I do quite a bit like the 61.5 yards for his higher or lower. And I do believe he's going to go higher than that number. This is the game. This is the stuff they've been waiting for all year. He's going to have an impact in this game. It is not going to look like Buffalo, I don't believe. I don't think the Eagles have. If you want to stick Chauncey Gardner-Johnson on Travis Kelce, I wish you the best of luck. If you want to stick Oren Burks on him, I wish you the best of luck. You're going to probably need to stick both of them on him to even have a chance at slowing him down.
At least, yeah.
That is one that I very much like.
That's a good one. Also, one of the ones I put in that Xavier Worthy's over under for rush plus receiving yards is only like 55 or 56, I think, or something like that. Pretty low. So I would maybe take the higher on that one because they're going to get Xavier Worthy going.
They must have changed it on you a little bit because I see it right now at 66.5. But
they've raised it a little bit.
Still don't hate that.
Still don't hate it. He had 100 yards total last week. So
yeah. So also Mahomes' rushing touchdown essentially, unless you think they're running like a Philly special pass to him, is over or is a higher or lower than a half, and the only option is a higher. It's got a multiplier on it.
Mm-hmm.
We know what it looks like when he wants to win something, and if he needs to scramble in for a touchdown, he's gonna do it. Heck, they may call a design run with him like they did last week when he ran in for a touchdown. So I don't dislike the Mahomes touchdown. I also Kareem Hunt. If you're a Kareem Hunt guy, that's another touchdown I could very much see being a thing in this football game. So just some options. There's plenty of things and available on there. There's picks for all sides. There's Dallas Goedert's on there, Devontae Smith. Obviously
tons of options on there. It's interesting. It's crazy how many different like options and different things you can do on Underdog. Yeah, you can get first half stuff, first quarter stuff, like all different kinds of stuff.
I think some head-to-head stuff between players, like rivals type stuff, where if you think one player is going to have a better day than the other, you can. So for example, they've got AJ Brown and Travis as a rivals matchup for receiving yards. Fantasy points, you can do fantasy point stuff on there too with some of those higher or lowers. So
points is pretty cool.
There's all kinds of choices. There's all kinds of stuff. Longest reception, AJ Brown, Xavier Worthy. So all kinds of different options for rivals, for just straight up doing a pick sheet. I would assume they have some big game draft type stuff on there as well. So hop on if you're not a part of not doing Underdog yet. Jump in, use our code. You'll get bonus deposit. You'll have if you get in early and get it done tomorrow, you get the no sweat going, and you'll have a
Travis Kelce pick, a free pick on there. It's like a over or higher, like a 0.5 yard or something like that, basically free. So that's a good one. Yeah, definitely check them out. Okay, let's get into it, fellas. Let's get into the final score predictions of the season for the Kansas City Chiefs. Also with a little extra thing on the side. Remember, let's do score predictions, and then let's also do our pick for potential Super Bowl MVP. If obviously it might not be Patrick Mahomes again. They might just give it to Pat again if they win. But let's figure out a couple other options for MVP. Anyone initially have an idea of what they're thinking?
I can go first if you guys want me to.
Yeah, Kyle, lead us off with the score predictions and MVP pick.
Realistically, I do think it's probably Patrick that gets the MVP.
Yeah, but if it's not Patrick, let's say besides Patrick.
If it's not Patrick and it goes the way we all would like it to go and think it's going to go, I genuinely think it would be a game where Travis Kelce wins it, and it's because he has 80 or 100 yards, a couple of touchdowns, and he just dominates. The only other guy that I think could make an impact, especially on make a claim for that on the offensive side, to where Patrick wouldn't be the guy that ends up with it, is a Kareem Hunt monster day, where he's just running them over in the red zone and he scores 2 or 3 times and he has 100 yards overall on the ground or in between on the ground and in the air, something along those lines. my score prediction, I don't think the Eagles offense is going to be able to score enough, is basically what this game comes down to for me. The last time these two teams played in the Super Bowl was 38-35, and I just don't see that being the case this time around. This is a different defense against a different type of offense, and Jalen Hurts played the game of his life in that Super Bowl. And I don't see that being a repeatable performance, especially with what this team is after. So I have Kansas City 33-24. And I think it's a couple of scores, and then it gets a little closer towards the end. The Chiefs are going to come out ready, focused, and ready to go. And I don't know. Like I said, I talked about it earlier. I think there's been a lot of talking themselves into this Eagles defense being as good as even the one from a couple of years ago, and I just don't think it is. We've watched teams that aren't as good and don't have Mahomes at quarterback move the ball effectively against this Eagles defense. And if you let this Chiefs offense move up and down the field on you, they're going to score points. So give me Kansas City 33-24. I really think Patrick is the one that ends up being MVP, but I could see Kelsey if Kelsey has a huge day.
Okay. Tom, I feel like I know what you're looking at.
Well,
or let's see. What do you got?
I'm actually over here doing my underdog picks while we're talking about this to kind of put my money where my mouth is, so to speak. However, I am locked into a tradition that has gone back to the Dolphins game.
Is it? How long have you been doing this tradition?
For the playoffs, it started with the Dolphins game last year. So I fully believe in my heart that the Eagles will win the Super Bowl.
Wink.
So
for our audio listeners,
I think the Eagles will score more points than the Chiefs.
Wink.
I feel like I'm tempting fate with acknowledging the curse too much. So
yeah, you are playing with fire. Yeah.
I'm gonna go with a score of 24-19. Probably some weird things happening. I don't think it'll be as high scoring as people think. That's my thoughts. As far as Super Bowl MVP, Patrick always makes sense. However, what I want in my heart, despite losing, being on the losing team,
wink,
I want to see Kareem get the MVP.
That'd be pretty sweet. Yeah.
I want to see that be the way. It would be incredible for him to come back and be one of the few. Has an MVP ever been on a losing team? I think it happened once.
Not often.
I think it's happened once. But yeah, that would be my vote since he would be on the losing team.
Losing team, wink. Okay. That was pretty painless. I mean, at least that was a pretty painless showing from Tom there. Yeah, listen, I'm very confident in the Kansas City Chiefs to three-peat. I've been confident in them since they won the trophy last year when they were on stage saying that they were going to three-peat. I had full faith and belief that they were going to do it. And, 360 some days later, here we are once again with the opportunity to do it. For me, Super Bowl potential MVP, you're right. I think Patrick is usually always the safe choice. Defense, there's been a couple defensive MVPs in the past few years. I remember Malcolm Butler, I think, was the Super Bowl MVP when he picked off.
Thanks, Pete Carroll.
Yeah. So as far as MVP, Bill, I'm gonna do a little dark horse, still sleeper option. We saw Nick Bolton potentially as a guy 2 years ago who had a case for MVP if he would have returned that second fumble. I'm gonna go with Trent McDuffie as a Super Bowl MVP. Get him maybe an interception, maybe a sack on the day from a hard blitz, shut down AJ Brown and Devontae Smith or whoever he's up against. And maybe, we saw it last year in a very crucial situation. They sent him as a blitzer, and it was a big moment. I could see him if he gets a couple stats getting it, or potentially Chris Jones. Can never rule out Chris Jones if he has a big day, gets a couple sacks, really dominates the line of scrimmage. And I think also just from like a historical team perspective, I think everyone would probably be pretty cool with Chris getting it, especially with everything that he's gone through and done for this team. I think that would be something. I don't know who decides on the Super Bowl MVP. I don't know who is that, like Roger Goodell himself. He just phones it down.
There's a group of voters, and
so I don't know exactly.
To allow Josh Allen to be eligible for Super Bowl MVP despite not playing for the. I hear they're going to look at that rule in the offseason.
They might change that rule in the offseason.
Yeah, so that he can get one. Yeah,
give me a defensive player as a potential dark horse Super Bowl MVP, either Trent or Chris. I'm going to go final score 31-20 Kansas City Chiefs. I think the Chiefs get it done enough. I think they limit the Eagles to points. I don't think the Eagles can score as much as they did last Super Bowl. And yeah, it's really going to come down to me of what the offense can do. If they can keep on producing, if they can get off or stay on the field, that they don't, they're not 3-and-out a bunch of times and having the defense be out there for a large majority of the game. Got to win the time of possession battle, as they always say. You don't got to win it, as we've seen versus the Chiefs. That's actually doesn't always seem to be the winning recipe, but it does certainly help if you can give your defense a little more of a break and just, control what you can control, dominate the game. And I think it'll be a good time. Also, got to highlight Super Bowl halftime show, Kendrick Lamar. I think he's going to kill it. I think it's going to be one for the record books. I'm just saying. I think we're going to look back at that Super Bowl halftime show and be like, wow, that was a good one.
Well, it'll be an interactive halftime show. I can assure you of that.
It's going to be a good time. So with that, I think that's it. I think that's all we've got for the official Super Bowl 59 preview, courtesy of the Kingdom Says.
Really want to thank all of the 700 plus of you that are hanging out with us on a Friday night before this game.
Appreciate it.
Thank you guys for tuning in. Make sure you follow us on all the platforms. That will come out in podcast form too on any of the podcasts. Mm-hmm. If you missed any part of tonight or want to go back and listen to it, it'll be available. Hop over to the YouTube. I know there's a bunch of you watching on Twitter, and we love that and we appreciate that. Do us a big favor. Hop over to the YouTube. Subscribe to the YouTube channel. Flip those notifications on both on the Twitter or X or whatever you guys call it. I still call it Twitter. I will probably forever. Flip the notifications on so that you know when we go live. We do this. We try to do this pretty much every Friday at this point. We've had a lot of good response and good help from everybody being a part of this. Welcome back. Good to see you, G-Pick. We was wondering if we were going to see some of our familiar faces that we get from in our comment section. So hop over on any of your podcast platforms, like, rate, subscribe, drop us a comment. Tom's gone blurry. I don't really know what happened there.
I'm trying to listen to Kyle and Tom's just blurry.
Earlier, Tom had a red dot show up on his forehead, like a ball, like a blob. I don't know.
Things are happening over here. Listen. This is what Josh warned us about, and now Scout's barking.
Our
other mascot location. Guys, they're taking me out.
Yeah, they're shutting Tom down. We gotta get out of here.
Tank has made his way into my office, and he's now here. Also, you can't see him because Mr. Big Head is sitting on the floor. So, but we really appreciate everybody rolling with us this year. We will be back after the Super Bowl. Either way, if Garrett and I are right, or if Tom's prediction is correct. Hopefully it's in a celebratory fashion and everybody is excited for Sunday. We appreciate all of you guys and can't wait to continue this run, man. It's been so much fun.
Been great.
I got to give both of the guys here with us, with me tonight, a bunch of credit. They do a lot of work. We do a lot of stuff behind the scenes that nobody sees. It's been a heck of a run, and I've enjoyed every bit of the last 4 years that we've been doing this now, Garrett. So thank you both also for your guys' commitment and time and everything that you guys do for this. So I just wanted to say that before we get done before the biggest game of the year.
Yeah, I appreciate you guys too. It's been definitely a really fun journey doing this, especially this season and all the seasons. Yeah, it's a great time getting to cover the Chiefs, especially with your best friends. So Tom.
You keep to cut me off. All right, fine.
Tom. You're lucky that I'm blurry right now.
No, I just want to echo that. Especially just again, shout out to you guys. It's been a long NFL season, and it's been a long season for me personally. It started the year kind of on the pup list, and you guys were super supportive of me, and we'll always be thankful for that. But gosh, it's been great. Even though, scheduling mishaps, everything else that happens, we've been able to string it together. It's win or lose. And again, I'm happy to be wrong. Second time today I've said that, but I'm happy to be wrong, and we'll be here to do it all either way. So again, thank you to everybody who's tuned in. Thanks for being with us. We're going to be here with you guys as till the wheels fall off or until I evaporate.
It might be good. Yeah, you might pull you might just like disintegrate like Spider-Man did and all that stuff. Y'all remember those movies? Yeah. Okay. Let's get out of here. Last thing from me, and I really like saying this after every episode, and I'm gonna say it again. For everyone who doesn't know, we are in the golden era of Chiefs football. And you gotta appreciate that. You definitely can't take it for granted. Like Josh was saying earlier, like we're gonna look back at these years in 20, 30 years and be like, wow, that was awesome.
You will tell your grandkids and your great grandkids about this stuff. This is not normal. This
is good stuff. So 60 more minutes of this season, and that's all we've got. We appreciate you all for tuning in and watching. Let's have a good one. Let's have a good Super Bowl Sunday, and go Chiefs, go Chiefs. So thank you all again. We'll see you guys on the next episode of The Kingdom Says.